Always a pleasure to chat some Jets with Murat from The Athletic. And listen, Connor Hellebuyck goes down, the surgery. Eric Comrie gets the crease. They lose 3 of 4. The Jets don't have their MVP. The West is very competitive right now. You know, these 3 straight losses, how worried does it have people in Winnipeg?
I think Winnipeg is worried about its current situation. It's rare for the Jets of this era to look up at the playoff cut line, to make it to U.S. Thanksgiving, staring up, having teams to pass just to get to a wild card spot. And it's not just the goaltending either. If you do a season-long look at the Jets' numbers, they haven't controlled flow of play. It's only been a recent uptick where they're starting to create some things. And over this 4 games that you just mentioned, where they've won one of those 4 games under Eric Comrie, Josh Morrissey, Mark Scheifele, and Kyle Connor have as many points as every other Winnipeg Jet combined. So there are a few issues here in Winnipeg that need to be addressed if these guys are going to be legit this year.
Well, Murat, one thing I know, it's never just the goalie's fault, because I can attest to that. You know, there's always a lot that goes into it. But like, you know, is there a lot of pressure now as you look at these next 4 games on the road, where you have some games, you know, you're in Nashville, Buffalo, and then Montreal, but you got Carolina tonight. Does this not feel like you need to kind of find a split in these 2 of 4 games, or, you know, who knows what happens moving forward?
Yeah, I think that it's okay if the Jets tread water without Connor Hellebuyck. It's not okay if they sink, right? And you know, as a goalie, one of the things you need to do is give your team confidence. Connor Hellebuyck gives his team swagger day in and day out. Eric Comrie gives them confidence too. They believe in him, but if they start chaining these losses together, that's going to waver. They've got to find a little bit of a spark there. And like you say, it's never just the goalie. They need offense too from other positions. But Eric Comrie's career high in games played is 20. He could get there in this month that Connor Hellebuyck is out just this season. Thomas Milic, who's going to get in there because the Jets have back-to-backs coming up as well, he's never played an NHL game. So there's a huge microscope on the Jets' crease right now. I don't think you can fault Eric Comrie as the reason the Jets are not in a playoff spot right now, but he could do a world of good for them if he can step it up and help them tread water right now.
I'll kind of turn the attention to what they
got caught up there in your answer.
All good. I want to talk about what they could do going forward, because they made news last week. They get Adam Lowry locked up. Kyle Connor signs the extension earlier this season. You park that drama. They have a lot of important pieces locked up for the future. And I know this has always been a thing in Winnipeg about how aggressive or not aggressive a GM like Kevin Cheveldayoff tends to get. Do you think having the core locked up, does that sort of give Kevin Cheveldayoff the flashing green light to like, all right, now let's add to what we have here. Let's get more aggressive. Or is it the reverse, where it's like, hey, you know what? There's not as much pressure on us to go deep this year. All of these guys are going to be back next year. Like, which side of the coin are you kind of on when it comes to that?
I think it's green light for aggression. And one of the things that the Winnipeg Jets have been good at, even though Chevy has this reputation as the most patient GM in the universe, he doesn't make big splashes. If you go back and look at years where Winnipeg was a legitimate contender in any way, 2018 with Paul Stastny, 2019 with Kevin Haves, they had Monahan a couple years ago, they had a couple of pieces last year. Anytime that the Winnipeg Jets are legitimate, they read the room and they step on the gas and they try to add pieces. Now, the challenge in Winnipeg right now is proving that this year they're legitimate, because they're all in on this core that you mentioned. You have a lot of core players 30 years old and over. It's an aging team. They're really only a cup contender, and they're not right now, but they're only capable of that as long as Connor Hellebuyck's still playing at an elite level as well. He turns 33 this spring. So if ever there were a situation in Winnipeg where there was a green light available, it's now. It's in this next couple of years, and they have to back it up with play on the ice. If they do that, I have no doubt that Cheveldayoff will be aggressive off the ice.
So I have 2 kind of questions just about offense and their centerman, right? Like Mark Scheifele's having a great year, right? There's obviously that 4 Nations, you know, he didn't make it and he's pushing to try to be on the Canadian team. You know, what have you thought of his game so far? And then secondly, I just want to run down about Jonathan Toews and how he's been like sustainability of, you know, coming back to the league and what he's done so far for the Jets.
Yeah, I'll start with Taser, because I remember the first day of camp, looking at just how he was fitting in with the guys, looking at the plays he was making, look at how he moved. And my first call was to Chicago, to my colleague, Mark Lazarus, who had covered Toews for a long time. And I'm like, hey, this could have gone any number of ways, but I assure you he's an NHL player, right? This guy is not washed. All of those fears are not there. The guy belongs in this league. He belongs on this sheet of ice with the guys that he's skating with right now. And I think that keeping in context the distance he's traveled to get to where he is and playing again at 37, that takes respect. That earns respect. Now, that doesn't mean he's driving play night in and night out. It doesn't mean he's playing at peak Jonathan Toews levels. He's getting second line center minutes, and he's not really producing a lot of offense with them, even though there's some chances starting to creep into his game. I think he's improved as the season's gone on. They made a big bet, and the bet hasn't paid off yet. I think they're going to be patient with it on Toews because they think it's about the stretch run and the playoffs and his ability to play tough minutes at clutch time. He's still got a little ways to go to completely cover that off, I would say. Mark Scheifele, last year when he got sort of informed that he was not going to be part of that Four Nations team, he eventually works his way into that runner-up position, or I don't know how that feels to be on call and you're waiting and you might get a chance. But he was on absolute fire from the moment that it seemed he wasn't going to be on that main roster. He picked that up again to start this season, which is another real testament to him and the fact that he was able to go through the summer he did, losing his dad, all of that sort of stuff. There's a lot on his plate right now. And for him to come out and generate the offense that he has, that line with Kyle Connor, the two of them have connected for as many scoring chances as almost any other duo in the league, each one of them setting the other up for high danger scoring chances. They have it, those guys. If the rest of the team had it like that, we wouldn't be talking about looking up at a playoff spot.
I guess to wrap up where we started, when the Hellebuyck thing kind of came down, I was like, man, maybe there's a world where this becomes a blessing in disguise, right? Like Hellebuyck goes on the shelf for a little bit. He gets the body sorted out. And then when he comes back, he's rested. And then we get to the playoffs and we're not doing the whole same song and dance of like, oh, did they overplay Connor Hellebuyck? What's he got left in the tank? But for it to get to that point, they need to survive for the next 20 games. If you could, maybe inject some truth serum into Scott or Neil, if he could make one thing start to go right for the Winnipeg Jets to survive this stretch without Hellebuyck, what would be number one on his list?
Secondary scoring. And he has not been shy about saying that. Scheifele and Connor have scored. Velarde picks up a couple the other day. There's good stuff on one line, and the other three that they have aren't putting it together. Part of that is, there aren't a lot of flat out impact players in that group. There's a lot of guys who can be more than the sum of their parts when they have chemistry. They haven't really delivered in the recent stretch of games. They're not getting the world's greatest breakout passes right now either. Some D-men are hurt. The third pair isn't throwing crisp breakout passes up the ice to feed their transition. But I think secondary scoring is it. For your point though, on blessing in disguise, I want to know what Carter thinks, because I haven't been a goalie since I was a squirt, right? I was 4 years old and everybody takes a turn. There's some analytics people who think that there's year over year fatigue in goalies, and nobody's played close to as much as Connor Hellebuyck has in the last several seasons. Can you be tired in September because of something you did in February? Like, is that real, or is that just that's just a bunch of nerds talking?
No, I think there's a point there. I think there's a bit of like decompression that happens. And sometimes when you're playing your best hockey, it's almost like you get to a flow state where the games are just rolling and you're in it. And then when you do get that break or, I guess a space, it's almost like you don't realize how exhausted you actually are. So I think this could be very healthy for him. And he is such a student of the game that maybe this break, and then when he revs it back up, he's going to realize, wow, that rest was so important. Where for me, I always found if I had an injury and I had to come back, that first little bit's a bit of a transition. But then as I start to roll into it, the weeks go on and you're very grateful for the time off. So I do agree with Ty and what we're saying here. This could be a huge benefit for the Winnipeg Jets, but they got to stay in that playoff hunt as he's out though.
100%. Yeah. They've never tried it this way where he doesn't play 60 plus games. So they're forced to try it now. But to your point, they have to be in the mix when the time comes.
Murat, as always, appreciate your time, man. And we'll chat soon.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.